for a deeper reading. You'll notice that under the sample, that when you're looking for the participant's number who completed the study and demographic information, which means information about their race, their social economic status, their profession, you'll notice that those details are often included in the results section. So go ahead and look at the results when you're pulling that information to explain who the sample was. Your total N will be the number that finished the study, and you'll get information about their average age, gender, and information that relates to why they were included in the study or perhaps why they were excluded. You'll also notice in the methods section that there can be more than one instrument for measurement. If you have more than one instrument, more than one data collection tool, it's best to write those as a list. So give it a number, name it, and then briefly describe it in a couple points. Also, you'll want to say how the researchers collected the data, how often did they collect it, and they will also name the statistical test or the software they used to analyze the data. Look for that information. Okay, let's take a look at the qualitative study that was our sample article. It's a good idea to review the research question to help guide what information you'll pull from methods. So in yellow, in the current study, we aim to address the gap in the literature, the knowledge gap, by exploring how women with PP experience the services and the support that they received, and what kind of care that they would prefer. So it was an exploration. This is a qualitative study. That means there is no statistical or quantitative analysis. Let's now look at their methods. So we learned that this study was part of a wider qualitative study, and we have the name. When we come down to the participants, we learn that 12 women were included. They were from the broader study, and they were included because they self-reported having experienced PP. We also learn that we can get more of their details, descriptions, in the results section. So that's why we'll skim down to the results. And we get more information that they were recruited from 6 healthcare centers across England. We can see their age, that they were 16 years or over. Most of them spoke English and had a recent pregnancy. All of them had a baby within the last 9 months. And we can see the duration. The data collection for this qualitative study was semi-structured interviews, which means the questions are open-ended. That means that the respondents can answer and speak freely after each question. The questions explored women's views of the services that they received across their entire care. That means from pregnancy to childbirth and after. It also asked about their partner's involvement. We learned that the questions were flexible and open, that interviews took 1 hour approximately, and that they were in the participant's home. So we get all of those details about the tool. For data analysis, we learned that the interviews were recorded, transcribed, so they were written, and that the names were removed. They were anonymized. All of that information was imported into NVivo software for a thematic analysis. NVivo is great for qualitative studies. It doesn't analyze by statistics. It helps the researchers look for common themes of experiences that the women had and where some of the differences were. And a qualitative analysis for themes, it takes time to refine. The research team met regularly to refine their analysis and to revise the themes as they needed. So we get all that information about how the data was analyzed. In the results, we can start to look to pull more information about the sample. And you can see the details. The average age was 35, and that in total, 10 of the women had previous service for mental health. We can see that most of them were highly educated and that they came from a white English background. That's important to include. Why? Because we'll learn in the discussion that the sample, the characteristics of the sample, and small sample sizes can affect how confidently the study reflects the general population. In this case, we can already see that there are some limits. Okay, so that's the qualitative study method section. Now what about for your own article that maybe has a different method? Well, let's take a look at how your notes will slightly be different, where they'll be different. So let's start with randomized controlled trial. Your total participants will also be in the results section, and it will also say how many participants took part in the treatment group and how many took part in the control group. It will mention words like randomly allocated or randomly assigned. Also, your notes should say what the treatment group participants received, what was the intervention, and the control group. They received nothing, but what does that mean? Were they waitlisted, or was it a placebo? Write down that information in the methods section. You'll also want to write down how often the data was collected. Usually at the start and at the end is the minimum in order to make comparisons. If you have a cross-sectional study, usually the researchers are interested in risk factors. So in that case, participants who were included, some of them will have the risk factors. They're called cases. Some of them will not have the risk factors. They're often called controls. Usually these are big studies, and so often the tool will be one survey. And that survey will usually ask about the risk factor. And it will ask with many different questions. But it will also ask about other things as well. And so these surveys sometimes will have 3 parts, asking about 3 different conditions or risk factors. Make sure to get those details from the method section and write them as a list. What parts of the survey were measuring the risk factors? Name them and describe them. If you have a prospective cohort study, it's very similar to a cross-sectional. There will be large numbers of participants. The difference is that your cohort study researchers followed participants over a period of time. So you'll want to record how long did they observe the participants for to see how the condition progressed. Often, just like in a cross-sectional, there will be a survey given to the participants before they're divided into groups. So record information about the survey. What did it ask about? It usually will have 3 or 4 parts as well. So name each part and say what each part of the survey was asking about. How many questions were asked? What kinds of questions were they? Look for that information. Okay, I hope this video helped with your method section. Good luck.